So I plan on teaching Bryce about Chinese calligraphy, and I'm actually really excited about this. I plan on teaching children English in Taiwan in the fall, and so I thought this would be a really good kind of reversal of that, teaching an English-speaking student about Chinese. When I was learning Chinese, it was a very foreign concept. I took Chinese up at the college. I didn't serve a mission or speak Chinese before a year ago, and I came to really love the language, especially the idea that language can be an art. And so I thought that this would be a really interesting lesson to teach Bryce, especially as he's come to the age of getting the priesthood and preparing for more actively a mission, one that might or might not include a language. So I thought that this would be a good start for him to kind of appreciate, one, English, and two, other languages, but in specifically Chinese. I don't have it with me, but I have a professor who has this kind of special paper, and instead of using ink and wasting a lot of paper to practice Chinese calligraphy, you just use water and then have a brush and you write the Chinese on the special paper, and it will disappear after a few minutes, and so you can practice lots and lots. And so I plan on using that, but I wanted to show with him what the prototype would be, and so I plan on showing him a video of a man doing Chinese calligraphy and kind of explaining the aspects of the four things that make Chinese calligraphy. So the prototypes would be, I have it right here. The defining features. The defining features would be that there's a brush, that there's paper, ink, and that there is that it's characters. It's not art like drawings or anything, that it's specifically characters. And so we'll show that video, and then to kind of bring in from his schema the idea that Mulan is Chinese, and there are a few aspects of little scenes where Chinese calligraphy is used, but each instance one thing is missing. And so we'll go through those three short videos and talk about the aspect and negative instance of the calligraphy that's in each of those videos. So I also to lower his trait anxiety, I plan on, not lower his trait anxiety, to lower his state anxiety, I offered him to choose the place where he wants to have the lesson. So he can, I don't know where he wants to do it yet, so wherever we end up doing, I hope that he kind of realizes that is where he's comfortable with, which is kind of ironic because in turn where he chooses will lower his state anxiety, but it might also raise my state anxiety. So that'll be kind of an interesting thing. And so I've already kind of planned for that maybe I will be in a new and uncomfortable situation. But I mean, I don't really foresee that being a big factor in the lesson, but it'll make it kind of interesting. So I've talked about the positive and negative instances. Also some misconceptions, we'll talk about those. One, that Chinese is the hardest language to learn. That's not necessarily true. It just takes a lot of effort to learn any language. And the characters are often the hardest part. Getting around, looking at something that doesn't correlate with English at all. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. But in general, just learning a new language is difficult. So that misconception, hopefully we will dissipate. Overgeneralizations. This one was kind of interesting for me to research and really develop. But I came up with an overgeneralization that all calligraphy is Chinese, whereas not all calligraphy is Chinese. I mean, there's English calligraphy, and you can make Arabic is a famous one for having a language that is very artful when it's written. And then another overgeneralization is that all Chinese is calligraphy. The idea that anything in Chinese that you write becomes calligraphic, which sometimes it's just, scribbling or just quickly written, and it's not thoughtful and art-based. My undergeneralization is that only calligraphy written in Chinese is calligraphy, whereas that kind of goes with my first overgeneralization that calligraphy is Chinese. That any calligraphy is calligraphy, and today we're focusing on Chinese calligraphy. So that was really interesting. Took me a long time to figure that out, but I think that will kind of help our lesson and really focus our lesson in on the art of Chinese calligraphy. So I plan on, wherever we do have our lesson, on sitting next to him, one for function, but also two for the ability for him to kind of lower his state anxiety and help him to see what's going on my side, and he can be cued and led to do the same things on his side. And so he will be on either side of me, wherever, and that will be our physical arrangement, and hopefully that will help to lower his state anxiety and have a good lesson. So proximity will be close. Also, just creating an environment where he can ask questions or add to the lesson if he knows something. We can kind of adjust with his own cueing that he gives to me. So just helping that environment of learning where he feels comfortable with me and I feel comfortable with him. So that. A lot of what our lesson will be very visual. I have videos, and we're going to be working with paper and brushes, and so it will be a very visual centric and motor centric lesson. So he'll be asked to draw and to write the characters that we're talking about. I did give him the option to choose the 3 characters that he wants to practice while he's with us, while we're in our lesson. And so hopefully we'll be able to kind of work on that, and he'll be able to draw the characters, write the characters with ease by the end of the lesson, and he can memorize the way that they are. I chose really simple ones, ones that kind of would be applicable and of interest to him. I remember one of them was handsome, and I kind of hope he chooses that one, so he can call himself handsome in Chinese. I think that would be kind of a unique idea. And then also one thing that I thought of is to kind of up that zone of proximal development. We'll talk about the way that you write Chinese characters, how it goes from top to bottom, and there's specific order to writing the Chinese characters. And so as we go through and we do the 3 that he's chosen, then I'll introduce a new one, and he can kind of figure out, how do I write this, and how, what's the order and the beauty in this character. And so that will be our zone of proximal development, kind of pushing the limits of his knowledge and seeing what he really learned, and seeing how well he understands it. Let's see, what else? So using his scheme of Chinese, generally all I knew up until high school was that Mulan was Chinese, kind of. And so I think using that to pull from his schema will be really helpful for him and for me to talk about those connections. Hopefully he won't have a failure to retrieve or store. Again, I'll be doing lots of comprehension checks and be gauging where he's at and what he's understanding or not understanding, and we'll be able to adjust the lesson if necessary. Again, with the situation of where he chooses to have the lesson, hopefully there won't be any interference. But if there is, we can be focused, and hopefully he'll be interested enough in the lesson and have a intrinsic motivation to continue with the lesson, to continue focusing and moving forward with what we are learning. I think this is a really interesting idea. My kind of moral challenge to him or moral dilemma is to decide whether or not he wants to learn a language, even if he doesn't, if he ends up not serving a language mission, that he will still have the ability to learn and understand a foreign language. I wish I took French in high school, and I wish I had kept up on it. But I think that this lesson of kind of being more culturally aware of a language will help him to kind of just have the ability and confidence to connect with the world around him, that he will know that he has some kind of cultural awareness in him, and that he can relate to other people as well, and be more of a citizen of the world kind of idea, which is kind of cool. So hopefully his self-efficacy concept and esteem will all be engaged, and he'll be excited and motivated to participate, because it will make him a more well-rounded person, and add to his schema of the world view. And hopefully develop a love for Chinese personally, but in general just a love of learning a language and being excited to communicate with people that aren't from his background or may have had different experiences than him. I want to talk about what he knows about Chinese at the beginning, and so talking about his personal theory or what he does know. I'm pretty confident that he will understand Mulan and kind of have that in his background, and so using that will really help the lesson and kind of engage him in that culture. And then also understanding like what he thinks, or maybe like what he would think about Chinese characters, and kind of get an understanding of where he's at in comprehension of that. So Bryce is at the kind of moving from concrete operational to formal operational. So we'd want to focus on aspects of that and kind of move him into kind of seeing the world around him more from a adult standpoint, and really kind of seeing his role in the world. So we'll be talking a lot about kind of his identity and role in that. He's also in the identity versus role confusion area of development, and so hopefully we'll be able to kind of bridge the gap between learning a new language and also being confident to move forward and actually be confident in speaking a new language and communicating with others. Transfer. I'm kind of interested to see where this goes in our lesson. The transfer from what he knows to what we're learning, and then from what we're learning forward. So hopefully there will be positive transfer, and he can have a good experience with the lesson and move forward and have a desire to learn a new language, whether it be Chinese or something else. A lot of his senses will be used. I plan on, again, like having him participate in writing the characters. So his motor skills will be used. It's very visual, so his occipital and temporal lobes and motor cortex will be used. And then, I don't know if I will touch him, but I will be near him. So, I'll probably have I'll help his hand kind of move forward and with a brush, and kind of show him how it feels to hold the brush and what it means to take care in writing Chinese calligraphy. So any part of the brain, the amygdala, the neurons, the amygdala, and all of those will be engaged as he's learning about Chinese calligraphy. So I'm excited to teach this lesson, and I think it will go really well. Like I said, my goal is for him to not only write the characters with confidence, but to instill in him an intrinsic desire to learn another language and to be more a part of the world that is around him. And I'm excited to see where he takes this. So, yeah.